Fugitive Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has escaped once again from Mexican authorities, this time sustaining an injury to his face and also his leg as he narrowly escaped a police operation to recapture him in the northwest of the country. We are talking about Mexico, of course. Now, not many details have been released so far, Jose, but what we know so far is that we, on this side of the border, the U.S., had intercepted certain cell phone signals that were coming from the Sierra Madre Mountains that we believe to be from El Chapo's ranch, where he's hiding out. Now, the Mexican Marines showed up there with helicopters. They seemed like they were ready, but apparently they were getting fired on by El Chapo Guzman's people from the ground. So they had to retreat. They came back, did a ground operation. This is like full-out warfare. This sounds like we're talking about Iraq or Syria or something. We're talking about Sinaloa. They came back, did a ground operation, or at least they tried. He had already fled. He left on ATVs, nowhere to be found. They found some of his things, but like always, the elusive El Chapo has managed to do it again. What do you think?
I mean, El Chapo, I think this is hard for me because anything that comes from the federal government in Mexico, it's in a cloud of suspicion nowadays. The acceptance of the president is very low. Nobody really trusts any statement that comes from the executive power in Mexico. But talking about El Chapo is very vocal. If you take a look at his tweet feed, you can tell that he's talking shit about the president of Mexico. He's talking shit about Donald Trump. He's talking shit about the U.S.-Mexico game that just happened. So he doesn't give much thought to coming out and being public and being vocal about what he thinks is happening in the country. And I think it's the level of distrust to the president is so high that he seems to be like a folksy character that a lot of people support and kind of protect because he is close to the people. And he does a lot of things that benefit to the communities where he does his criminal activity from. So it's a complex issue because he's a criminal and he commits crimes, but at the same time, he takes care of the people around him. The government is not doing so, and sometimes he gets support from every level of the society, from the top dogs. I mean, we just need to remember that no one got fired from the prison where he escaped from. We're talking about the highest security level prison in the country, the highest profile inmate escapes, and no one gets fired. So for me, that's very, very clear where the government stands when we talk about El Chapo. But also the reality that the citizens of the country actually support El Chapo when it's about hiding him, not necessarily out of respect, many times out of fear because he's very powerful and he can pretty much decide over your life like this, but it's very easy for him to move around, to get tips if the police is close, and also the knowledge of the terrain allows him to escape when maybe many of these militaries, the military don't know the area. He knows how to get in and out of the Sierra like nothing. So it's not surprising. At the same time, many times these are just statements that the government puts out just to make the illusion that they're working towards something, and that's not the reality.
So what you're saying is no matter how evil El Chapo is, no matter how many terrible, terrible things he's done, how many people he's killed or killed indirectly as well, people might support him sometimes because they see him as an obvious opposition to a president that they're not happy with?
Yeah, a percentage of it is like that, but also I think is a discontent with the situation and also a lot of fear. Well, I don't think that there's many people in those areas that will stand up against El Chapo. If the government can't stand up against El Chapo, I don't see the regular citizens coming forward and saying, no, I'm going to stop you. They're going to get killed. So it's a complex situation for the citizens on how they relate to El Chapo. I think no one wants a country that is run by drug lords, but at the same time, we see the evidence that the drug lords are protected by the government. So
right. So I mean, look. Speaking of the government, this isn't the first run-in that El Chapo's had since he escaped from jail not long ago. Now, there was the famous incident that we actually reported on when he got in a car accident in the middle of a city and was able to be taken to the hospital and then later, what seemed pretty easily, escaped from the hospital as well. So that's why I'm a little bit surprised that the government's going to come out and say, hi guys, we almost got him, we hurt him a little bit, but yeah, sorry, he slipped through our fingers again. I mean, you'd think that this whole case is a huge embarrassment for Peña Nieto's government and his people, so why are they coming out and publicly saying, hey guys, we almost got him? Why don't they keep their mouths shut and keep doing what they're doing, keep working with the U.S., and then when something happens, because a lot of experts are coming out and saying, we're going to get him pretty soon, we're closing in on him, he doesn't have much room to hide, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got away again.
Let me tell you, not too long ago, Jorge Ramos, this Mexican journalist based in the United States. He went and interviewed former president of Colombia, Gaviria. He was the one in charge of capturing Escobar. And when Escobar escaped from prison back in the 90s in Colombia, the president canceled every international trip that he had in his agenda, came back, put together a military task force, which was a state priority to capture this criminal. They switched to spend 7% of the GDP into security. Mexico is spending 1.7% of GDP into security. The president stayed 2 weeks in Europe the day that Chapo escaped from jail. This is the second time he escaped on a major prison. And it's very, very clear that if there was a priority to capture El Chapo, the government should be acting in a complete different way. The reality is that there's no urgency in capturing El Chapo. There's a collusion in between the federal government. There's a level of corruption never seen before in Mexico. And sadly, we see Mexico going through the same security crisis that Colombia went through in the 80s, when narcs were just working rampantly with no opposition from the government, in many cases with the support of the government. So I think there needs to be a deep reform in Mexico, not only in the legal aspect, but also in the leadership. I think that hopefully we can see a different leadership moving forward, because the current president, I don't think he's doing a good job.
All right, well, we want to know what you guys at home have to say. Is Mexico reliving the nightmares that Colombia went through in the 80s, or is this something completely separate? Should the president be doing more? Let us know in the comments below, and if you guys haven't already, please, as always, subscribe to the Lip TV 2 for more.